Hello, everybody. We made it. Made it through 2020. As has become a yearly tradition, we're going to go over my top 10 figure acquisitions of the year. And as a reminder, for anyone who may not be familiar with this series, it's top 10 acquisitions, not necessarily top 10 things that came out this year. So some of the stuff on this list may not have come out this year. But if I got it this year and it's my first time having it, then it's, well, not going to be on this list, but it's eligible for this list. Also, because there was so much stuff this year, both in terms of stuff that came out and stuff that I got because I'm horribly irresponsible, because of that, I had a few extra criteria that I threw in. So any figures that are repaints or slight remolds of figures that were already on my list in previous years were not eligible to be on this list this year. But as I'm saying that, I'm realizing one of the figures on this list is actually a repaint slash remold of a figure that was on a list from a previous year. So, whatever, we're rolling with it. So let's just kick things off with those honorable mentions. This is going to be in no particular order, really, but it's going to be 5 figures that didn't quite make the top 10, but would have made the top 15, we'll put it that way. Honorable mention number 1 goes to Gigawatt. Oddly enough, I'm actually really surprised by this. I had no initial interest in Gigawatt whatsoever when I first saw the initial photography. When I saw the tinted windows that they changed it to, I felt better about it because, clear plastic showing off robot junk is just not my thing. But then when I watched Pia's video on it, and he was showing how the wheels can actually turn and do like the flying DeLorean thing, for some weird reason, that's what convinced me to really want to get this toy. I was fully prepared to just be like, oh, it's just a remold of Sideswipe, I'm not that keen on it, but like the vehicle mode looks great, the robot mode actually does look really good. Like I've got a couple of gripes with it that other people have too, but I actually really like this guy a lot. I was not expecting that. Honorable mention number 2, as with Gigawatt, is a figure that I got fairly recently in terms of like when I'm recording this. But it's a figure that I've been wanting to get my hands on for, I want to say about a year or so, and I'm glad I finally did because it is Hello Carbot Sonar Diver. It is another robot that turns into a submarine, this time a Hello Carbot robot, and I really like how this guy came out. Like, he's got some really interesting design elements here. I really appreciate the fact that these arms you can actually fold down so they're not just like sticking out like this, because that was kind of a turn-off for me when I saw the figure initially. The transformation's simple but really effective. There's actually not really much kibble on this guy at all. He's surprisingly really posable, and you can almost approximate bicep swivels because of the back and forth butterfly motion on the shoulders. He's neat. He's really neat. He's fun to mess with because he's a Carbot and easy to transform. Okay, now on to the last 3 honorable mentions. This next honorable mention needs no introduction. I remember when the Studio Series line kicked off, and I was saying, I forget which video it was, but I was saying like it'd be really cool if they did Studio Series Constructicons and if they actually combined into Devastator. And like, I don't know if it was several months or longer after that, but they announced this guy, and it's just like, yes! I freely admit, not all of the Constructicons are great standalone figures, and Devastator on his own is kind of a brick. Like, I know you can fan mode in a crawling mode, but like I've never been able to get that to feel very structurally sound, so I just kind of keep him like this, which I don't mind. I still think he looks cool, but the point is, I was really hoping we would get this, and then we got this, and while what we got is not perfect, considering the price range and the fact that this is a major retail set and not like a masterpiece thing, and also considering the fact that some of the individual bots are actually quite good, I'm very okay with this, and I'm very happy that we finally have a proper movie Studio Series Devastator, even though I've never seen Revenge of the Fallen and never will, because that movie is, let's just say I haven't been a fan of any of the clips I've seen. But I'm glad I have this. Okay, almost to the end of the honorable mentions. Next one goes to Earthrise Smokescreen. I just really like him. He's got some bits with his transformation that are not super great, like the legs transformation in particular, but I really like the colors. I really like the sculpt and the proportions. on this guy. The engineering is fun, and even though I'm probably the least interested in Smokescreen as a character when it comes to the Datsun Carbots, I just really like this toy. And for our final honorable mention, technically I'm cheating because this is not one figure but three, but I kind of feel like they have to go together. That is Earthrise Double Dealer with the Spy Patrol, specifically Knock and Scar. I always thought G1 Double Dealer was a very fascinating toy, even though I never owned one originally. Just seeing other people's photos and videos about it just seemed really, really cool and intriguing. And once I got this guy, he does so much of the same stuff, but his engineering allows for some extra finesse, I guess, let's say. Also, much more posability. And I also love the fact that Knock and Scar, while they are just repaints, they still serve a similar function, kind of, even though they're not necessary for the transformation. I appreciate the fact that that functionality is in there and just kind of makes this feel like a complete set, like a legit update to a G1 classic. At least I'm assuming Double Dealer is a classic. I'm not super knowledgeable about G1 stuff. It's a great overall set. It's just fun. I really, really like this trio. Okay, now we're in the top 10 proper, and, well, let's start with a bang, I guess. Number 10 is, oh boy, Earthrise Scorponok. I've never had a, I've had a Scorponok before, but I've never had one of these kinds of Scorponoks before. Like the purple and green monstrosity that is a monstrosity in every sense of the word. This has been a joy. The base mode is fun to mess with, and I've actually started to enjoy the idea. Oh, jeez, it hurts my hand already. And I've started to enjoy the integration with the other figures and the other potential base modes. The Scorpion mode is fun, the colors are great, the robot mode is great, and it's very posable, and it's also very heavy. And I also dressed him up because he's the biggest thing I have that could wear a hat. I'm really, really glad that this exists, and I'm glad that I have it. I've got some ideas for a customization project for him that I still have been a little bit gun-shy about, because, that thing's huge. It did take forever. But regardless, we are not talking about Scorponok anymore. We are talking about the number 9 toy acquisition of 2020, and that is Tobot V Captain Jack. And I've said plenty in the video for this guy already, but I just love this. The colors are great. I did jump in, customize it immediately to make it more show accurate, which is technically cheating, but with those additions, he looks even better. It breaks up the color even more. I love the design and style of this guy. I love the cohesive theme of Shark Pirate that is in all aspects of the design, including the vehicle mode. I love the fact that his toe key actually stores in vehicle mode and it doesn't look weird. It's actually a part of the car. I really wish they'd do that with more of the toe keys, but whatever. The only downside to this guy is he's lacking some basic articulation, but he's a Tobot, so I can get past that. Other than that, I love the concept and design of this guy. It's great. Number 8 is a figure, or it's more than one figure technically, that I do really like, and it's really cool. But much to my dismay, it is yet another large thing. Because, yeah, Scorponok was not the only one. Because he is also sharing a list with Hello Carbot Pentastorm X. I do have gripes about this set, which I did make in the extremely long video, but even with those gripes, I love the look of this. The design is great. It is a little busy, I will admit that, but it's still a really cool design. I like how they kind of added stuff to the basic design to just kind of make it fancier, I guess. I also love the fact that it is 5 individual robots and vehicle modes that combine to make this guy, rather than one vehicle that turns into a robot and then 4 vehicles that just become parts for the combined mode. The only real significant gripe I have with him mechanically anyway is the gorilla arms. I'm still not a fan of that. And the individual bots are no slouch either. The arm bots aren't great, but Storm, that makes up the center mass, and Dandy and Ace, that make up the respective feats, they're actually pretty nice standalone toys. So yeah, overall, really good set. Okay, we're getting close to the halfway point. This next one, number 7, is, you could argue that maybe I'm cheating because this is a figure that I customized, but it's not the customization that made me like this figure. I feel like as a standalone figure without any tweaking, without any color enhancements or anything like that, it is actually a really cool toy. I understand people have their gripes with one of the modes, but the transformation is really clever, and the results are pretty awesome regardless. But anyway, enough preamble, we are talking about Studio Series Blitzwing. As a figure, just the core figure is really solid. The design is neat. I actually really like the design of this robot mode. While the coloration that I added is not perfect, I feel like it does definitely enhance, but you know, even without that stuff, he's a really fun, neat movie Transformers figure. Because he's from, you know, Bumblebee and not the earlier Michael Bay movies. I know technically Michael Bay was involved in Bumblebee, but you know what I mean. He's, you know, got a cohesive look. He doesn't look like a friggin' mess. He's neat. He looks cool. There's a lot of cool stuff to his design. I know that people are disappointed that he's not Starscream, but just taken for what he is, he's very cool. Rounding out the almost middle at number 6 is yet another cheat because it's not a single figure, but it's figures that were sold as a set. So I count them as one, but I am only using one figure for representation because I don't feel like juggling a bunch of figures all at once right now. And that is the Magic Square video team, represented by the one guy here. I love this set. It's my new favorite toy deco reflector set that I have. It replaced the Perfect Effect Assault Force X set that I had for the longest time. It was like my favorite reflector set that I owned. It's just fun. The transformation is very straightforward. There's not as much parts forming and like parts to remember where they go as there is the Perfect Effect version. There's way more articulation. There's more articulation than the Siege version, and they look great. They are just great looking toys. They are really nicely posable, they're fun to mess with, and yeah, I like them a lot, and I want more Magic Square toys, please. Okay, let's do this. Number 5 is the figure that I mentioned way back at the beginning of the video about how I kinda sorta did cheat with my own criteria. Didn't even realize it until I was talking about it at the beginning of this video, and I'm not gonna undo everything and like redo the list. So we are rolling with the exception of the no repaints of figures that I previously owned or were on previous lists thing. That is Generation Select's Rotor Storm. Clearly he's got some extra stuff going on here, but I adore this. I mean, I love the Spinister mold as it is. And Spinister is great on its own, but like, there's something about the Rotor Storm color palette and the updated Rotor Storm specific head that make this feel like where the mold was meant to be. And I know that's silly considering the fact that this is clearly meant to be Spinister. I understand that. Just the way it feels like this is how Spinister's mold was meant to be. I just adore it. The colors are amazing, the mold is great, and this, in my mind, is the best way to experience this mold. Next up, we've got a figure that was on a previous top 10 list, but I'm not cheating because it was not a top 10 acquisitions list, and it was not from last year. It was a top 10 list from this year. Probably surprising no one who's been keeping up with the videos and whatnot. That would, of course, be the winner of my Nemesis September top 10 list, which is, of course, the Magic Square Light of Freedom Nemesis. I am just enamored with this thing. I know everyone has, you know, their own Masterpiece Prime preference. Like, a lot of people like the Transform Element one. A lot of people like MP44 for some reason. A lot of people love MP10 for good reason. But the Magic Square mold is what I want. And the Nemesis version in particular, the colors, the paint is great. The transformation on this thing is extremely effective, but nowhere near as ridiculous as MP44. And also it looks cleaner in both modes. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to say people shouldn't like MP44. If you love MP44, you hang on to that thing because it is precious. But you kind of can't deny that the robot mode and the truck mode for MP44 are a little bit messy. And I just think the Magic Square version of both looks a lot cleaner. And yeah, I'm not trying to turn this into a discussion of like this versus that. I'm just trying to say I love this as a Masterpiece scale G1-ish Optimus Prime mold. And because I find Optimus Prime boring as a character, sorry, had to say it, I prefer it in the Nemesis colors because this is a much more interesting color scheme to me anyway. So it's basically everything I want. It's So of course it's on this list. So number 3. Oh boy, okay. When I said there was more than one really big bot on the top 10 list, I did not mean that Pentastorm X was the other one. There are actually 3 big bots on this list, and the final big bot on this list is, once again, not a single bot, but a collection of bots. Even though it's smaller than Earthrise Scorponok, it might actually be heavier. I am talking about Ocular Max Assaultus, or the Ocular Max version of the Combaticons, comprised of, let's see if I can remember all of this, Fraudo, Probus, Incursus, Volatus, and it's another V.
It's Impetus. Let's not have a repeat of Strong Arm Prime, please.
I can never remember this one. I don't know why. But they make Bruticus, and I absolutely adore this set. I love the fact that everything is self-contained, so all of the limbs have all the stuff, all the engineering you need to make the combine mode. You don't have combiner feet to worry about. You don't have combiner hands to tuck off to the side. It's all integrated, and that is brilliant. Point is, Assaultus is a fantastic third-party Bruticus. I absolutely love the sets. The individual figures are great. They're fun to mess with. The transformations are intuitive, and I am just so happy I went in on this set because it is... Like, I'm not a Bruticus guy. I'm not a huge Bruticus fan, but I love this, and I'm glad I have it. We are down to the number 2 figure, and I think it's time to get chivalrous. I actually don't know anything about the character, but I am talking about Tobot V Classic because of the Knight motif chivalry. I don't know, it seemed like a good idea at the time, but Tobot V Classic is so good. The articulation is limited because he's a Tobot, but he's a really, really cool looking robot. The style, the detail is great. Admittedly, I did do some tweaks on this guy, like this cape is not the cape that he comes with, but whatever. And I did also paint that yellow plastic in gold, but like, I love this figure. The design is so great, and the alt mode looks amazing. I'm just not a fan of the lance, but I can deal with that. It's just if he had like something better to do with the lance, if he had better articulation, he would have been the number 1 figure this year. But as it is, I think number 2 is a pretty darn respectable spot for something as overtly kid's toy as a Tobot. But to be fair, he is a remarkably special Tobot. Lastly, there is a figure that might come as a surprise to some people, considering how much I complained about the movie designs just a few figures ago. You may also be a little confused because I haven't talked about this figure too much throughout the year, other than when I first got it and made the initial video for it. But the main reason I didn't talk about it that much was because I didn't want to tip my hand, because I have been ecstatic about this figure ever since I got it. That is New Age Mista, or Mista. Their sort of movie masterpiece take on Dark of the Moon Soundwave. I love this figure. This figure is amazing. The engineering is on par with movie masterpiece figures, so it's like, it's complex, but it's not absurd. It's not like, you know, something from G Creation or something like that. It looks amazing. There's nothing on it that I really think I would need to paint because it's all there, it's all painted. It isn't a perfect representation of the movie model, but I feel like, in fairness, how would anything perfectly depict a movie design like this, or any of the other first 5 Bay movie designs, without basically being a figure that doesn't transform? Like 3A Bumblebee from the Bumblebee movie looks nigh on perfect, but it doesn't transform. Yes, I know about the third party, fourth party, whatever one that is being worked on. I've got my eye on that one, but the point is, how could you do this and have it look perfectly like Dark of the Moon Soundwave and still have it transform? I don't think you could. All things considered with that, I feel like this is as close as we're going to get, and I really do like this. Admittedly, the Tung Mung, I think it was, version of Soundwave I was more interested in that one based on the renders and the early prototypes, but that got canceled, and this was what we were left with, and I'm honestly really glad that this is what we were left with, because this is great. And it does that thing, that very particular thing that only a few figures have done in the past, including figures like Reveal the Shield Lugnut and other figures that I'm drawing a blank on right now, but it does this thing where you think you've got the transformation down and you think you've got everything figured out, and then you find out about little bits here and there that maybe you did wrong or maybe you missed, and when you do those, suddenly it adds an extra layer to the figure. It makes them feel more complex, it makes them look better, but it's not like a huge addition. Like with Lugnut, I initially missed the shift that brings the shoulders up and the hip swivel around thing. And once I got those, it was kind of like, okay, now he looks great, and it's almost like I found a little bonus. With Mista, whatever here, it's the pulling out of the biceps to like bulk out the arms a little bit, and also the way that the legs lock together around the outside. That was something that a lot of people missed, and I only caught it because of checking the TFW thread on it, but it just adds that extra element to it. Locks everything in a little bit tighter, and it completes the look. I just freaking love this toy. It was worth the money and worth the wait. Admittedly, I wouldn't have minded getting it for cheaper, but I do not feel like I paid too much. Yeah, I know, movie sound waves, not proper sound wave, but I don't care. It's so cool. And that is that. Boy, that took a while, didn't it? Though hopefully once I edit this down, it's not going to seem like that long for all of you. Anyway, that is my top 10 acquisitions of the year. I do have a couple of things in the mail as of right now, but as of this recording, we're only about a week away from the 25th, and with how completely messed up the mail has been lately in the US and other parts, I'm sure, but like in the US in particular, because of reasons, with all of that going on, I have no freaking clue if the stuff I've got in the mail is going to get here anytime soon. So I've cut it off. That is my top 10 for the year. I don't know, maybe I'll do a top 10 next year, even though I'm not going to be doing much in the way of YouTube stuff. We'll see. I want to thank you all for watching both this video and anything else that I've done over the years. It really does mean a lot, even though it sounds like a boilerplate response that YouTubers make to everything. I don't consider myself a YouTuber. That sounds so bad. Point is, I appreciate you all. I really do. And if you are so inclined, I wouldn't mind knowing what your top 10 acquisitions of the year are. They don't have to be Transformers either. If it's like action figures, model kits, anything, nerd toy related, feel free to let me know. I'm curious. Basically, just don't feel compelled to include only Transformers if there are other things that you got in the year that you want to share. That's going to do it for my top 10. Thank you all again for watching. And, I hope 2021 treats us all better than 2020 did.